Welcome. Great to have you here. This is a unique moment, a moment that unites all of us. We all face anxiety and loss. We all see broken systems. We all experience the impact of the climate crisis. This is a unique moment. This is a turning point if we choose to make it one. This is a moment to reflect, to learn, to share, and to co-create. And I invite you to contribute. I ask you to contribute. I ask you to partner to fix broken systems. I ask you to join the movement so everyone can step into their change-making power. I ask you to nominate the next generation of changemakers. And I ask you to share your wisdom, your knowledge, your expertise. And I ask you to donate to support changemakers. This is our moment to fix the world. This is our moment to contribute. Today is the day, and you are the one.
Welcome. I see that we still have some people who are joining as you come in. I want to say hello and welcome everyone. This is the Ashoka Changemaker Summit session on the new longevity. So if that was your destination, you have arrived at the right place. If that was not your destination, come stay with us anyway. We'd love to have you all the same. My name is Chris Cusano. I'll be moderating this session on behalf of Ashoka. I guess the thing that I would tell you about myself is that today, where I am, is November 18th, and November 20th marks my 20th anniversary of Ashoka. So it's been 20 years of fun and games, work and play, doing various things, and I'm very excited to still be involved and to be working on this new longevity program with all of you. First, I want to say thank you to our colleagues and friends at Ashoka Europe for putting together this summit and making this possible. I'd like to point out that we have quite a number of people who've joined the session, some of whom I just want to say maybe playing key roles here. I want to point out that for logistical matters, we have my colleague Anne Betia here. And Anne, would you like to introduce yourself and give people whatever tips we need so that technically and logistically we have a smooth session?
Yes, of course. So hi, everyone. My name is Anne Betia, as Chris was saying, and it is actually 19th of November, where I am in Seoul, South Korea. I will be, as he was saying, playing the role of the session coordinator. So in that role, I'm here to make sure that the technology runs smoothly, to respond to any questions that you might have through the chat. So I'll be moderating that, and also sending along any references or links to things that come up on dialogue. Before we get started, I would encourage everyone to change your names, to rename yourselves to your name and location, for example, country where you're in. So we also get a feel of where we're all at, where we come from. To do this, you can go on your to your screen, to your face where the camera is showing. You will have 3 dots on the top right corner, and there will be a rename option. So if you do that, then we'll all kind of become more familiar with where we are. And with that, I think, Chris, I'm going to pass it over to you and we can get started.
Okay, sure. And if anyone is joining through Swapcard, right? So you're sort of just watching this, but you don't yet have the interactive ability, you can also you can click on something and join through Zoom, and that way if you want to ask a question, introduce yourself, make a comment, you can join through that too. So Anne, I think you can you can share a link for that, right? Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so what is this all about? This is a session on the new longevity. Well, I'm going to tell you the purpose of this session is it's a message, and it's a calling, and it's an invitation to all of you and to a lot more people as well, to join something that Ashoka is putting together. We're at the very beginning of putting this together, and it is what I have been calling a global movement for new longevity, right? What do we mean by new longevity? Well, there's an undeniable trend that's happening in the world, which is that the human race is aging, right? There are more older people. We're living longer lives. Therefore, proportionally, there are more and more older people in society. And this is a global demographic trend of the human race that manifests differently in different places. But the projections tell us things that, in some societies by the year 2050, 25 or more % of the population will be age 60 plus, right? And in other places that, those milestones may also be reached, but they may be reached, a decade or 2 decades later. But the trend is consistent, clear, unanimous. And so that raises the question of how ready is the world to host an aging human race, right? In other words, are the societies we've created the societies that are going to allow people to live full, uh, meaningful, dignified lives in which they're able to define who they are and how they want to live throughout their lives? The old paradigm was to think of a field of aging in which we're going to deal, quote unquote, with the problems of old people, right? And because perhaps those demographic trends would suggest that's where we put our attention. However, as soon as I began talking to those Ashoka fellows who work, in these areas, the first thing they said is, stop. This is not about aging. This is about redefining the human experience over lifetimes and lifespans. It's about perceiving and getting rid of bias and ageism. And it's about opening space for human beings to do the things that we naturally are inclined to do, like care for one another and contribute meaningfully to each other's lives and rely on each other and build interdependence in our communities. So much of that has been driven out of people's experience, not necessarily deliberately, but through, over maybe medicalized aging systems, right? Or care systems that don't really recognize natural or informal carers, right? And at the same time, as we age, we find that not only are we changing, but that society has new labels for us, new boxes to be put in. Retirement is a box, senior citizenship is sometimes a box. And so what Ashoka sees overall is that with so many social entrepreneurs around the world looking at different aspects of this universal human experience, that one thing everyone agrees on is that there's a moment that's arising in which we can redefine some of these fields. We can redefine this old field of aging, right? And adopt a new perspective, this longevity perspective, which has to do with quality of life throughout life for people of any age, right? And similarly in the fields of caring. And so what Ashoka allowed me to do was to start a process in which I would talk with some Ashoka fellows and just try to learn what these trends are. And we had our first round of conversations, I think, with 10 Ashoka fellows over this past year during the summer months, about over 12 weeks or so. And we learned so much. And one of the points that came out was this point of consensus that we really do need to imagine and enact some sort of global movement, not just to share programs or best practices, but for what we call framework change, right? What Ashoka says, is like, this is really about getting to those, changing those behaviors, assumptions, institutions, right? That take us, that really underpin public systems, cultural systems, right? How we look at aging, right? So that so that is the purpose of this session, to invite anyone who's interested in the human lifespan, whether it has to do with people who are older, people who are younger, and how they make their transitions, right? We invite you to join. What I would like to do today is to first ask some of those Ashoka Fellows who have participated in these roundtable discussions during 2020 to take a couple of minutes each and share, basically where you're coming from. What brought you to this point in your work, your life, your career, that has kind of led you to join this consensus that we really do need some sort of global collaborative action. We can talk a lot more about what that global collaborative action will be later on, but it's time for me to stop talking. And if I may, I would like to invite Anne Basting, an Ashoka Fellow from the United States, to share. Anne not only helped me think about how we should run this session, but she also is the very first fellow who, when I said, do you work in a field called aging? And she said, no, I don't work in a field called aging. And that's what got the ball started. So please, Anne.
I had no idea I was to blame for that. Thank you, Chris, and thank you all for joining us. I also just want to loop back and tell a little bit about the summer, that for people who are working primarily with older adults or people in later life, this pandemic moment has also not only, it's as in that opening video, there's anxiety and loss in the pandemic and the systems are broken, but it's also in the United States, 40% of the deaths have been in care settings, in long-term care settings. And so there's this overwhelming panic of what to do and how can we act in this moment to make it better, and then also move forward and fix the broken systems or use the brokenness to move forward. And so those calls this summer were tremendously healing for me, and I assume for my colleagues on those phone calls, on the gatherings, it was really helpful. I come to you from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, right across the street from Lake Michigan, great big giant freshwater lake. And I've been working, I come from the arts. I'm both a creative artist, writer in performance mostly, and also have a PhD in theater. I'm a humanities scholar. I've been working on reimagining the connections in late life, and I founded back in 1998 an organization called Time Slips, which really seeks to bring creative engagement, to use the arts as a way to build relationships in care settings, in late life, particularly with people with dementia, and any other kind of cognitive or physical disabilities. We've learned that we can train people in these techniques, and then also infuse those techniques into any care setting and any care system in order to begin to transform it from being one solely focused on loss and over medicalization to one that looks at the strengths that remain, and to use them to promote growth and meaning and joy all lifelong, all the way to the end. One of the powerful things that I've found in this, in the gathering and the network of Ashoka Fellows dealing with this reframing around the new longevity, is that essentially at the root of it, it feels like what we're doing is saying there is a false dichotomy of I work with young people or I work with older people. That's just a false dichotomy. We're working with human lives as long as people are alive. That's the new longevity, is that frame of the wholeness of one's life. I think that is a core thing that funders, governmental agencies, any kind of system that is set up separates people by age and ability. And I really think that that's one of those core components. And a piece of research that in my own life as a scholar as well, that has been so influential there, has been that if you, a researcher in the Ohio Longitudinal Study of Aging found, Becca Levy at Yale found that if you internalize negative attitudes about aging, you live 7.5 years less than if you don't. So if we don't connect the fullness of one's life course and we allow negative attitudes about aging to persist, we're actually shortening the lives of young people. So you have to look at the wholeness of one's life. Really quickly, I'll just tell you our theory of change through time slips, which is that we see, we go upstream, we provide training to students in service learning in our Next Gen Creative Campus program, so that there's a positive engagement for students using the arts to engage with older adults with dementia in particular. To get them, to encourage them to see strength and capability and positive experiences with older adults. We go to supporting family caregivers to give them the tools of creative, meaningful engagement so that they can have powerful relationships all the way through to the end. And so that they see that this is possible, that if a loved one does have to go into a professional setting, that they can insist that this kind of approach is there in the professional setting as well. And then in the professional settings, we offer training and certification with solid research around return on investment and also quality of life and quality of care, that those professionals then see that this makes a difference and it can transform the system of care as well. That actually helps the professionals because it makes their own work more meaningful as well. So that's just a little bit of our three-pronged approach in time slips and a little bit of how this has been meaningful for me over the summer.
Thank you so much, Anne. So this is news to me that we have a chance to increase our lifespans. That's not necessarily the goal, but anyway, 7.5 years just by internalizing positive attitudes. And so let today be at least one big step in terms of internalizing positive attitudes. And one of the things we found during our discussions is that no matter how you look at it, this field of longevity always includes, two hemispheres, like a brain. It has two hemispheres. Anne shared with us from this hemisphere of caring and how we recognize changes over life, right? And then we also have this other hemisphere which has to do with engagement, right? And how people live their lives, how they work, and how they contribute to society over time. That's sort of, the matching hemisphere. From that hemisphere, I would like to invite Ashoka Fellow Sergio Serapiao, who has for me, a difficult last name to pronounce, but I always try to fake it by saying it quickly. From Brazil, Sergio is the founder of a couple of organizations, including Laboratec, which is an organization that is innovating new models of employment for older people throughout Brazil. Sergio, would you like to tell us a little bit about, where you're coming from and what you're hoping to see happen next?
Great. It's a pleasure, really pleasure to be here. When I approached first time Ashoka and I was discussing what I was doing at that time on aging and longevity, and there was this team that was like everyone is a change maker, but the only program that there was something for kids. The kids, the young people are the change makers. But if everyone, why only the only? And we couldn't go beyond that. So it's like a great pleasure to be here, because it's like we are awakening. We as society, we as fellow, we as companies and NGOs are awakening for this thing. And I would say that I don't know if my route was to be here, because I'm not a specialist on medicine or in something on health, but around 15 years ago, I have a degree on business, and I was on consulting field dealing with sustainability and helping large companies to be sustainable. And then a theme came in front of me that was aging, and that subject just was increasing in my attention. Suddenly, around 2013, I realized that all this change that is going on in the world and in Brazil about demographics would be the greatest source of inequality if we do not change our mindset. And with other personal inspirations, I was brought to initiate a movement called Lab 60 Plus. Lab 60 Plus is a lab to us to reinvent, rethink, reconnect with our life, with different people. So actually, Lab today connects people and organizations in a different way, from different ages, but always to rethink what is longevity, what is working in a society that has more years of life. How do we study now? What is it? And from that, a lot of startups or a lot of friendships, a lot of things have come into life. And this organization is all around Brazil, in some taking place in Latin America, and in a different Brazil, in different Brazils, which we call longevities, because there is the longevity from the white man, which I am. There is the longevity for the people who are black, for the longevity of people who are transgender, and all these longevities are very difficult, are very different, and we need to put them together. So what we say is that we connect unequal people to create a more equal world. So people that would not get connected, and we do that by what Anne just said. Something that we use is Procopó, which is being propositive, positive, and collaborative. So these three words is how we can connect. So it doesn't matter if you're right or left, if you are white or black, what do we have in common? And this is what we will do together. And this is what's been working. And from this, going deep in dive in this lab, which is very large, very a lot of diversity, I came to an understanding that the way that we work, the way that companies work, has to change if we want to include different people, especially people 50 plus, because the work that we know nowadays was built for or designed for young people only. So you go to university and then go to the bottom of our organization and go step by step. And then when you get old, you just get, people get rid of you. How could we change this? How could we recognize what each person has to contribute and what each person needs help in different ages? So that's what we've been doing at Labora Tech, which is a startup based on tech to create new works based on skills that life gives us, such as empathy, such as intelligences for intuitive senses and all that. So this we do not learn very well at school. So life is the best school for that. And companies need these soft skills. So what if we build positions based on soft skills that only seniors have to help what the world needs most, what companies need most. So that's what we've been doing the last 2 years with large companies. Now we are approaching governments to do this on scale, because 1 in each 4 Brazilians nowadays is 50 plus. So we need this work, and these people do not have work available, and we are in a change on how do we organize companies, how do we digitalize companies, and each time we get people older further and further, we need to build a bridge on that and get their best, and then a new way of working, new way of dealing with life. That's a little bit what we've been working. And it's great to be here. I think we need to, the next step for me, we build things together. I love to collaborative work. What can I learn from Anne? What can I contribute to Mark and each people, each country, each different challenge? I think we have a great room here, and this could be a great change.
Thanks so much, Sergio. It's always good to hear from you. I want to recognize also that we have some of our friends calling in from extremes of the time zone. I'm here in the East Coast of the US. It's a comfortable, 10:30 in the morning. We have friends who've joined from the West Coast, both the United States and Canada. And then moving the other direction, we have some friends joining from Asia. It's well after midnight in Seoul, and that must make it about what, 10:30 p.m. in Jakarta, DY?
Yes, it is.
Well,
10:30 here in Jakarta, Indonesia.
DY, thanks so much for staying up late to join. Would you just like to take a couple of minutes and share about who you are and what you hope we can achieve together?
Yes, my name is DY Suharya. I'm the founder of Alzheimer's Indonesia, the nonprofit organization aiming to improve quality life of people with dementia and family caregivers. Because my quality life was affected. My mom was diagnosed with dementia in 2009, but 20 years before she was diagnosed, she already showed symptoms of mild cognitive impairment and dementia. Nobody in the family knew about it. So this organization was established to provide support groups, to provide service on care, create meaningful engagements. And from one chapter in Jakarta, it has now grown to 21 chapters, 16 in Indonesia and 5 overseas. And it has been the go-to source of everything related to dementia and aging in Indonesia. And we've been the role model in awareness raising, and has reached out to young people. So there's some youth engagement programs as well in supporting the journey of caring. And we're hoping that by everyone's contribution and participation here, we can connect the dots and not reinvent the wheel, and explore all alternatives and creative approaches, culturally appropriate, that could really give and provide a good quality life, not only for people with dementia and family caregivers, but all generations. Thank you, Chris.
DY, that was compact and nutritious. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
One of the things that's been so exciting for me in this process is that we have had Ashoka Fellows representing societies that hold large portions of the human population, right? Brazil has, hundreds of million. What, am I right to say 200 million? Is that right, Sergio? Correct me. Now's your chance.
A little bit more.
Okay, a bit over 2, right? Indonesia has a population of at least 250 million. Again, DY is sometimes a matter of debate. And of course, the United States is a large country as well. And I think it's very important when we embark on, such kind of grandiose goals like framework change to redefine the human experience of aging, that we're sampling the entire human population, and that we're getting to know what people's real experiences are. And one of the reasons I was so happy to invite our next Ashoka Fellow, Anil Patil, the founder of Carers Worldwide, is that even in the caring organizations, often there isn't much representation from the Global South. And so Anil, in addition to his organization's programmatic work, also takes on this responsibility of making sure that the voices of informal carers and family carers, especially in South Asia, with its billion plus population, that those voices are heard and represented. So Anil, I would like to invite you to say a few words about what you do and what you hope to see in the future.
Thank you, Chris. It's a great pleasure to be here. Great to see so many familiar faces and fellow colleagues, and it's a great honor to share the work of Carers Worldwide. I've been inducted into Ashoka Fellowship in 2015, elected as an Indian Ashoka Fellow. And this whole caring journey has started. I myself is a carer, caring for our little one. And that experience has made me to realize that the importance of care and the impact it is having on your own health and well-being. So I was just asking a question. Imagine a country like, as Chris has mentioned, that India, where millions and millions of carers are caring for their loved one without any recognition, without any acknowledgement, without any appreciation of the wonderful role they have been playing. So that led me to establish this organization in 2012, Carers Worldwide. And our whole approach is we act as a catalyst to provide the support to the carers through partner organizations, which I will talk in briefly. And secondly is, whichever country we're working, how do we take those learnings and build the evidence and engage the policymakers to bring about the systemic changes. So as Anne has mentioned that earlier, that this year, the global spread of COVID-19 has become one of the greatest challenge of our time. The scale and severity of virus has created a particularly very frightening experience of millions and millions of carers around the world. Carers who have been caring for elderly, disabled, or living with long-term health conditions. As a result of this pandemic, the importance of care has entered into the global spotlight. The realization makes our work, that is working with the family carers, more relevant and critical than ever. Just I would like to highlight one bit that even global population estimates that by 2050, there is going to be 9.8 billion population. That means one of the realizations during this journey I had was all of us, not on this just virtual platform, but all of us on this planet, one or the other day, we all will either become a carer or somebody will be caring us during our lifetime. So how can carers worldwide act as a catalyst for global carers movement? Chris was talking about global movement for longevity. So I'm talking about bringing the voice of carers onto the sustainable development goals, onto the development agendas and discussion. How do we ignite the imagination of the general population? How do we amplify the voices of family carers? And how do we mobilize this unorganized sector, mobilize the carers to the platform? So since we launched our work, we have been working in 3 countries, India, Nepal, and Bangladesh, and we have impacted more than 73,000 carers and care for individuals directly working through partner organization. We developed a simple tool which has been tested and piloted, consists of 5 core elements. Most of the carers, they feel because of caring responsibility, they feel lonely, they feel isolated, they are worried about the uh, future of care for individuals if something happens to them. So we promoted more than 550 emotional support groups in these countries. So 2 key elements they keep talking about, their health has been affected. So we provide the services to address their health issues. And the second key is impact on their finances. Because of caring responsibility, 2 individuals are losing their income. So how do we augment their family income? And most importantly, the third element is because of caring responsibility, they never had an opportunity to take short break or respite in the countries where we are working. So we, through community caring centers, we offer that support to recharge their batteries. And finally, is we have created this platform where carers find their voices and network and advocate for their rights, their needs, and support. So that has been our intervention so far. So moving forward, what I would like to see how this longevity agenda and caring agenda can go together. So I have come up with the leave no carer behind. So it doesn't matter. Up until now, we have been working with only family carers because caring affects each one of us. So it is important whether they are paid carer, employee carer, or family carers. So leave no carer behind. How do we influence everyone, whether it is corporate or government or business community? How do we reframe the perception around this caring? How do we instill this empathy, which Anne has talked about earlier and Chris also mentioned? And how do we embed the change that promotes the rights of carers within the community, workforce, and the public sphere? Finally, I truly believe that if carers are healthy, family will be healthy, and economy will be healthy, and society will be healthy. Healthy carers, healthy society, and healthy economy. Thank you.
That's great, Anil. Thank you. Thank you so much. And just if I would comment a couple of things, caring is a universal situation, just like aging is a universal situation. Caring, as Anil explained, is a universal situation, but the status and the lives of carers varies greatly, right? And so, there are parts of the world where someone might spend their entire life, a child might spend their entire life looking after a disabled sibling or a parent in need or whatever the case might be. They may never go to school. They may never have a chance to develop their own life. They may never have a chance to get married or anything like that, right? And they really spend their entire life in service to another person. This is a reality of the human condition, which has often been let's not say overlooked, but I think its importance has been minimized. But we can see in some cases how important it is. So thanks for that. And similarly, in Anil's comments, we also understand a bit more what we mean by this framework change, right? We don't just mean delivering those programs to a certain number of people. Yes, we do that, right? But taking on those framework issues like how do we get the status of carers into the Sustainable Development Goals? How do we make sure that World Health Organization programs always include a line item for carers? Similarly with other organizations that look into various fields. The field may be dealing with the older population, you may be dealing with children, you may be dealing with disability, whatever the case might be, right? So that's, I think, an example of what we mean by framework change. Swinging from one extreme of the time zone to the other, it's now my very great pleasure and privilege to introduce the next dynamic duo to speak. This is Al Etmansky and Vicky Kamek, the founders of many important organizations and movements in Canada, and also a driving force behind a very, very recent, amazing framework change type breakthrough that's ongoing in the disability field in Canada. And so Al and Vicky, if I could invite you to, take a couple of minutes to tell us again, what has brought you to this point and what do you hope for seeing forward? And if you could just indulge me by talking a little bit about what's going on in Canada with UBI and disability.
Okay, Chris, thank you. And we're speaking to you on the extreme west coast of Canada. And by extreme, I mean we're on a small island off the coast of Canada right now. So fingers crossed that the power doesn't cut out while we're speaking. I just want to shout out to Chris and Hei Young for convening this gathering, not only today, but over the past 4 months. It felt to Vicky and I as if we had come home, that we had met travelers we didn't know, but were immediately our brothers and sisters. So I invite all of you on the call to join the next phase of this, because we're going to do something unimaginable and very pleasurable together. Our doorway in our work to the new longevity occurred when we discovered several decades ago that for the first time in history, a whole generation of people with disabilities were outliving their parents. And no system, no government, no institution was prepared for this. And this is really big. It's not a geographic population, but it's the largest population of largest minority group in the world. There are 1.4 billion people with disabilities in the world. In order for us to respond to this new longevity, we had to rethink and reimagine and redefine everything we knew about disability. And there were two things in particular that drove us in our agenda. The first was the profound social isolation that people with disabilities and often their carers experience. And the second was the question of poverty. And I wasn't planning to speak about it, but Chris asked me to indulge you. So our conceptualization was, what's a good life? And as Vicky says, that's a question that demands a one-size-fits-one answer, not a one-size-fits-all. And in that regard, poverty, or getting out of poverty, is a very important component. So we led a national initiative in Canada that culminated in 2008 in the world's first registered savings plan for people with disabilities. There are now over $5 billion, Canadian dollars, in assets held by individual people with disabilities in Canada. But what that did as well is it put poverty and disability, the equation between the two, on the agenda. And just recently, our Canadian government has acknowledged that, and they have promised to introduce the equivalent of a universal basic income. So what we've been doing for the last 4 months is mobilizing the disability world to, in Canada, the disability community in Canada, to in effect direct the process. We have a mantra in the disability world that says, nothing about us without us. So we are effectively ensuring or assuming that we are the orchestra conductors, and we will leave no stone unturned, including directing government, offering our support where it's needed, getting public support. So thanks, Chris. I didn't mean to take that kind of time today, but so wish us luck. So the stage went from the reconceptualization of disability to include the notion of prosperity, ending poverty, then the savings plan, and now a universal basic income promise that we intend to fulfill. I'm going to stop there and pass it to Vicki, because we've discovered many other things, one of which is the power of natural caring. So if Chris, if we may, a few more minutes, and Vicki will take over. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'll take us from money to matters of the heart, which I think has always been the other part of our work, and what is really, I think, a theme that I hear from all the other fellows that we've heard from this morning is that if we're going to talk about a new longevity, if we're going to talk about a different way of thinking about individuals throughout the lifespan, connection and to one another and contribution are going to be key elements, and of creating that good life. One size fits one, but unique to each person. What we discovered in a lot of our work related to PLAN was that the most important part of people's experience was their connection, their networks, the freely given care that came from their friends, their families, their neighbors, and that without that, there was no quality of life. Certainly, we, in terms of a statistic, 8% of the care that we receive in our lifetime is freely given. And when we talk about this freely given care, we describe it as natural care or caring. We often use the verb. And that is care that is largely invisible to us. We don't take it into account in terms of our formal systems and so on. And one of the things, and Anil referred to this, that the pandemic has revealed now is, there's two things. It's the critical nature of natural care. So it's made it clear that we rely on this, but also that our current systems of care are really inadequate and they are not keeping people safe. So there's, this really speaks to this moment that Chris is creating with this idea of a new longevity framework, I think, about the importance of why we need to be speaking about this. The last thing I think I want to say around this idea of natural caring is, when I think about the themes this morning around connection to one another, around contribution, one of the things that comes to mind is, why is it that we have so much ageism? Why is it that people with different abilities are not valued? What is it that underpins all of that? And in our work, what we've come to is an appreciation of vulnerability. And we see vulnerability, we think we need to reframe vulnerability, literally, to think about it as the seed that grows care in our society. That's why, most of us are terrified of growing old. And Anne, I'm going to take your words to heart. I want 7.5 more years on my life, and I'm going to, work hard around how can we rethink the inevitable vulnerabilities in our lifetime that happen to all of us. How can we rethink those? And for us, one of the things that, when we think about caring and natural caring, it's really a developmental force. It's what calls us to be our most human. And when we actually share our vulnerabilities, when we hold those up to the light, that's when we're creating opportunities for others to be their most human. That's it for me.
Thank you so much, Vicki. And the comment I want to make very briefly here is that, when we take on these deep human issues, it's what I love so much about Ashoka, and this is perhaps I'm giving myself some license as my 20-year reflection here, is that, you know, we both always have both halves of the pie. It's the deep insight into the human experience, empathy, relationships among people, how we live and what creates joy, right? And then the how-to, right? What are the policies, right? So although, you know, I'm someone who will declare grand ideas, we're going to have a global movement, right? It's because what I can see from my little vantage point here is I see these very successful movements taking shape everywhere, right? Such as what you guys have accomplished in Canada. Well, you know, we're coming up with only a few minutes left, and so this is what I would like to do. I would like to invite a couple of more people to speak, and maybe I'll ask you to just kind of give the short version, right? And then I'm going to reserve for myself the last 2 minutes to talk about what we can do next together. So if that's okay with everyone, Jimena, are you with us, Jimena?
Yes, I am.
May I invite you, Jimena?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. It's great to be together again, the Ashoka community that's looking at the same situation. And maybe my main comment is, I have two. One is that I liked when I received the invitation to this roundtable that you mentioned that this process was a natural process, completely biological and completely cultural. I like that. But thinking a little bit more, I said it's four dimensions. One is biological, one is cultural, the other one is economical, and the other one is environmental. Because I think that for us, listening at the other people who have taken the microphone, if we come from poorer countries, being poor definitely makes a whole difference on your health and everything. So that's one comment. And then the other one concerning caregivers is that, as you said, or as everybody has said, this is a new problem because before people would die younger, and those people who had disabilities probably would also die young. But now, since the medical system has improved so much, they have longevity, but they don't have quality in that longevity. So most of us will be caregivers or will be taken care of. And so I think that whatever we do to avoid losing the possibility of taking care of yourself and being independent, for example, by promoting work for profit or without profit, whatever, but mean having a purpose to live each day. And on the other hand, promoting empathy, so that it's a whole society who takes care of those people who need to be taken care of, and not living as being the sole responsibility for the wife or the daughter or whatever. Just that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jimena. And I have to point out that behind you on the wall, you have a poster for your organization, Travessia, right? Yeah. 100, right? The Journey to 100. And that's a powerful concept. And anyone who's interested in this, if you search, you will find. I think we have time. I would like to invite Luis. Luis, are you with us? Luis is an Ashoka Fellow who has not yet participated in the discussions, and we're welcoming him to join today. I hope, are you still with us, Luis? Perhaps not. Okay, well, I really have to compliment the organizers. The technology worked better than I expected. Hello? No. Right. Okay.
Yes, Chris, yeah, Luis is here.
That's okay. I speak Spanish, please, and sorry for my interview. En Venezuela, bueno, trabajamos fundamentalmente para trabajar por los derechos de las personas mayores, tratando de apoyarlos con el empoderamiento, haciendo visibles sus derechos y trabajando por una sociedad desde una perspectiva que permita hacerlos, o en este caso, buscamos a través de una plataforma hacer visible emprendimientos para las personas mayores, para hacerlos visibles y atractivos para los públicos que puedan tener acceso a esas iniciativas, a esos emprendimientos de personas mayores. Yo soy reciente en Ashoka, no tengo ni un mes, y bueno, pues es un honor para mí estar acá y aprender de ustedes que ya tienen buen tiempo, trayectoria y un know-how muy importante, y de verdad gracias y valoro enormemente lo que hacen. Yo creo que son ustedes los que van a estar cambiando la manera de relacionar con las personas mayores en un mundo que va cada vez más envejeciendo. Y para mí es un honor, y de verdad que en Venezuela tenemos un país que no está preparado para envejecer, y bueno, estamos dando los primeros pasos, y creo que el aporte de ustedes es muy importante. Gracias.
Thank you, Luis. Yes, please.
I'm having some issue, and I have not been able to share Luis's profile on the chat. So I'm going to try to get someone else to do that. But in the meantime, just as a short introduction, we're welcoming actually Luis. He's a newly elected fellow from Venezuela with the organization Convite. And actually the work they're doing is they have created a whole system to solve the complexity of the problem of mindset change around the cultural norms for older people. They have developed an idea in 3 main pillars: information generation, network and community building, and policy change. So they're exposing a lot of the elder generation in Venezuela with real data, and actually bringing a lot of these conversations to an international forum through the United Nations Human Rights Committee and other international networks such as HelpAge, for example. And I'm really sorry I have not been able to get that out, but I will try my best.
Thank you, Anne, for the translation and for everything here today. Well, the time flies, as they say. This has been an opportunity for some of the people who see that their interests as social entrepreneurs and as human beings intersect, overlap with this concept of new longevity. And again, I think the point of consensus is that, as Al once put it, you know, sometimes as an individual social entrepreneur, you can spend your career succeeding and find that you've only made it to the cutting edge of the status quo, but you know there's something beyond which could really be more transformative. And I think many social entrepreneurs have also reached this point. And what Ashoka is saying is, let's join forces. Let's design something that can push forward these agendas on that higher level, right? On that highest level. We don't quite know what it's going to look like yet, but what we have is a process. We spent the last year doing consultations. We call it the Roundtable. We're going to be opening the 2nd season of the New Longevity Roundtable in 2021. I ask everyone here, you don't have to be an Ashoka Fellow. You don't have to be a social entrepreneur. If you're on this call, please join us. So make sure we have your contact information, your email address, and we know a little bit about who you are. And we'll stay in touch with you, and we're going to keep you updated and invite you in further to help us build this thing. This is humanity's greatest design challenge, and we're going to take it on. So here we go. Thank you, everybody.